This is Tom, and in our private lesson, he said something about his technique that really stood out.
If I'm doing scales and nothing's at stake, I can move around pretty comfortably. But as soon as I start playing a song with my band, I'm stuck here and I don't want to move.
Now, after 16 years of teaching bass professionally, this is something I see all the time. Players who can play scales and exercises really well, but either freeze or tense up when it comes time to play real songs. So how do you bridge this gap? How do you go from someone who can play a few exercises or scales really well to a bass player with gig level technique they can really rely on? Well, in this video, you'll discover why Tom's technique worked in practice but collapsed when he played songs, the real problems that were actually holding him back, and the exact exercise I gave him to fix all these problems for good. Tom thought he'd been doing all the right things. He understood floating thumb technique, economy of motion, he'd put in hours practicing the right scales and exercises, but something in his technique still wasn't right. Now, this is a really common problem. It's something I addressed in my fingerstyle workshop, which is linked below. But once you understand why bassists hit this exact plateau, the path forward is really, really clear. Here's the core issue. Scales and exercises can train technique, but they exist in a bit of a vacuum. They don't test whether or not your technique actually works in real music. Don't get me wrong, they're a great way to get started with technique, but beyond that, they don't teach you the kind of skills you need to perform under pressure. And Tom, like so many other bass players, had fallen right into this trap. He'd built some really good habits through doing exercises and drills, but then expected them to hold up when he was playing a real song. And of course, they didn't. The demands of playing real music are totally different from playing exercises. You've got to think about your timing, your articulation, your dynamics, your sense of groove, and so many other things, and you don't really develop that from just playing exercises. This is why Tom's technique kept collapsing. But before I could give him something that would get him on the right track, we first needed to identify the real issues that were causing his technique to fall apart when he played real songs. Because if we couldn't diagnose those issues, then his practice would just be aimless guesswork. In our lesson, we did something that most bass players never do. We used a song not as an exercise, but as a diagnostic tool. I asked Tom to play through a song that he already knew, and then I just sat back and watched what happened. Here's what I noticed. First, his thumb kept switching between floating and anchoring, but without any control or system. That created a lot of instability, especially during string crossings. Next, when Tom was playing exercises, his fingers alternated really well, but when he played a song, this movement broke down, especially when he was crossing strings or playing more syncopated rhythms. And lastly, Tom wasn't happy with his tone production, and when we looked a little bit closer into this, the problem wasn't musical, it was technical. The way his fingers contacted the strings gave an inconsistent and really thin sound. But here's the crucial point. These weren't things we could have spotted when Tom was running scale exercises, because scales weren't difficult enough to make these problems show up. They only revealed themselves when he was challenged by playing real music. And now that we'd seen them, we could start designing a solution. Just as a doctor will prescribe certain types of medicine for a certain type of sickness, I had to design a new type of exercise to fix these problems for Tom. Now, it couldn't be a traditional scale exercise because those weren't helping him anymore, but it also couldn't be a full song because that would overwhelm him before his new technique habits had a chance to take hold. He needed something in the middle, a line that was realistic enough to be enough of a challenge, but also focused enough to address these problems and reinforce his new technique. So I wrote him a short bass line that did both. So how did this give him the best of both worlds? Well, the bass line was designed with two distinct features. The first are what I call pressure zones. These were tricky passages just beyond his comfort zone and current ability level that forced Tom to apply everything we'd worked on. The finger alternation, the hand position, and the thumb control. And the second feature is what I would call reset points. These were deliberate spaces in the bass line where he could pause, mentally check back in, and deliberately correct his technique without breaking the flow of the music he was playing. A approaching exercises in this more etude-like style is one of the fastest ways I know to lock in a new technique. Now, personally, I love this approach. I teach it in my workshops and my private lessons all the time because, on the one hand, it is realistic enough to give the student a genuine challenge and help them apply their new technique musically. But on the other, it's also short and focused enough to make these exercises feel achievable. So you develop new habits, give them a genuine challenge, and they actually stick. And for Tom, this approach changed everything because now his practice wasn't just about doing mindless reps. It was about developing his ability to play real music and knowing that his technique would hold up when it really mattered. Now, if you've watched this far, you're probably thinking, I would love to make that kind of transformation for myself, but I don't know where to start. Well, as I said at the start of this video, exercises are often the best way to make a start and get the ball rolling. And in this next video, I will talk you through an exercise I gave to another private student of mine that totally transformed his technique, giving him much more control, consistency, and fluency. So click up here to watch that video next.